The restaurant was one of those places where money whispered instead of shouted, dim lighting, soft jazz, and tables so far apart that privacy itself was part of the menu. Waiters glided like shadows, fluent in the language of silence. Samantha Rahim balanced a tray with the precision of someone who had once held far more dangerous things than glasses of champagne. Her movements were graceful, deliberate, almost too refined for a waitress. But tonight, she was just another face in New York's most exclusive rooftop restaurant. Hiding in plain sight at table 7 sat a man who seemed to own the air around him. Kareem Al-Mansour, CEO of Al-Mansour Global Holdings, a name that carried weight in every financial column and whispered conversation about power. He wasn't the kind of rich that flaunted wealth. He was wealth, sharp suit, gold cufflinks, an expensive watch that didn't need to sparkle to command attention. He had been watching her for the past 10 minutes. Samantha felt it. The scrutiny, the curiosity. She had seen that look before, the one that stripped away uniforms and tried to read the soul beneath. She steadied her tray and approached with a calm that belied the quickened rhythm of her heart. "Good evening, sir," she said, her tone professional, neutral. Kareem leaned back, a half-smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "You've been avoiding my table," he said, voice smooth, accent faintly Middle Eastern, refined by years abroad. "Do I intimidate you?" Samantha met his gaze, dark, probing, too intelligent for comfort. "You're the 4th table in my section, sir. I serve in order." His smile deepened, efficient and diplomatic. "I like that." He glanced at the name tag pinned to her uniform. "Samantha. That's not an Arabic name, is it?" "No, sir. But you are Arabic, aren't you?" His tone was teasing, testing. "I'm American," she replied evenly. Kareem chuckled. "Everyone in New York is something else first." He gestured at the empty seat across from him. "Sit, just for a moment. I'm working. Then consider this part of your work." He picked up a sleek black card and placed it on the table. "I own the building." She hesitated. This wasn't new. Wealthy men testing boundaries was a game she had seen too many times. But something about him was different. There was calculation behind his charm, something she couldn't quite name. Reluctantly, she sat, posture straight, eyes wary. He studied her like a man trying to solve a puzzle. "You have an accent," he said finally. "Soft, but it's there." "Levantine?" Samantha said nothing. "Ah, so I'm right." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Say something in Arabic." She blinked. "Excuse me." "In Arabic," he repeated, that smile returning, mocking, challenging. "I'll give you $1 million if you serve me in Arabic." The words were meant to provoke. Around them, conversations murmured and wine glasses clinked. But in that moment, the entire room seemed to fade. Her fingers tightened round the edge of her tray. He had no idea what those words meant to her, how deeply they cut. Samantha's eyes met his, calm and unflinching. Then, softly, she said in flawless Arabic, "Some offers are too cheap." Even when they sound expensive, the change in his expression was immediate. Amusement flickered, then vanished, replaced by something colder, recognition, surprise, a hint of respect. He sat back slowly, eyes narrowing. "You speak like someone who hasn't in a long time," he said. "And you speak it perfectly. I told you," she replied. "I'm American." He laughed quietly. "No American says that line in Arabic with that kind of weight. You've seen things. You've lost things." Her jaw tightened. "My shift's over in 10 minutes. Are we done, sir?" "Not even close," Kareem murmured. By the time she clocked out, the restaurant was closing. Samantha changed into her coat, slipped her tips into her bag, and stepped into the cool night air. New York glittered beneath her, endless, indifferent, alive. She took a deep breath, trying to shake off the unsettling encounter. But then she saw him again. Kareem was leaning against a black Mercedes near the curb, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. "Walk with me," he said when she stopped. "I'm not interested. You should be. What you said earlier, it wasn't just Arabic. It was Damascene Arabic." Her stomach tightened. "You have a good ear. I have a good memory," he countered. "And I remember a voice just like yours from a video 10 years ago. A translator working for the United Nations, fluent in 6 languages, disappeared after an embassy bombing in Aleppo. Her name was Samantha Rahim." She froze. "I don't know who you think I am." He stepped closer, his voice lowering. "Relax. I'm not the police. If I were, you'd already be in handcuffs. I'm here because I need your help. My help." "Yes." His tone shifted, no longer mocking, but urgent. "The man behind that bombing, the one who killed my family, is alive. And I think the same people who framed you are protecting him." Samantha's pulse pounded in her ears. For 2 years she had lived as a ghost, a fugitive blamed for crimes she hadn't committed. She had survived by disappearing. And now this stranger, this billionaire, was standing in front of her, speaking names she had buried with her past. "You're mistaken," she said flatly. "I don't know anything about that." Kareem's eyes searched hers. "Then why did you flinch when I mentioned Aleppo?" Silence. The city hummed around them. Taxis, sirens, distant laughter. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice stayed steady. "You should leave me alone." "I can't," he said simply. "Because you're the only person who can prove what really happened. And because the man who ruined both our lives is back." That night, Samantha couldn't sleep. She sat by her window, city lights flickering like distant memories. She told herself she'd forget him, that she'd burn the encounter, like every other dangerous connection before. But deep down, she knew the truth. He wasn't wrong. She had seen the man who destroyed her life. And if Kareem Al-Mansour was telling the truth, then this was her one chance at justice or vengeance. As dawn broke, her phone buzzed. No caller ID, just a message. "If you want answers, meet me at 10, the plaza. Come alone." Samantha closed her eyes. Every instinct screamed no, but her heart whispered finally. The Plaza Hotel's marble floors gleamed like liquid gold beneath the morning light. Samantha walked through the lobby with practiced composure, her every step measured, cautious. She dressed simply, black trousers, a cream blouse, hair tied back, unremarkable, invisible. Just the way she liked it. But invisibility only worked when no one was looking for you. And Kareem Almanzar was waiting. He stood near the private lounge, dressed in charcoal gray, the picture of calm authority. Even in the daylight, he radiated power, not the loud kind that demanded attention, but the quiet, dangerous kind that already had it. When he saw her, his expression shifted, surprise flickering briefly before settling into approval. "You came," he said softly. "Curiosity," she replied. "And the fact that your text didn't include the word please." He smiled faintly. "I don't use it often." Not surprised, Kareem gestured toward a private table near the window. "Sit. No one can hear us here." Samantha hesitated only a moment before sitting across from him. The city stretched behind him through glass. Busy, unknowing, alive. Kareem poured coffee for both of them, then said without preamble, "His name is Rashid Al-Hafez." "You knew him once." The name hit her like a punch to the chest. Images she had buried clawed their way back. The embassy courtyard, smoke rising, screams. The man in the expensive suit walking away while the world burned behind him. Her voice was barely a whisper. "He's dead." Kareem's gaze sharpened. "No. He's very much alive, and living in New York under a different name. He's here for something big." Samantha forced herself to breathe. "And what does that have to do with you?" "Everything," Kareem said. "He financed the attack that killed my parents. The same explosion that destroyed your career and framed you. We were both casualties of his lies." Samantha's fingers tightened around her cup. The past she had run from was suddenly standing in front of her, speaking with the voice of a billionaire. "Why me?" "Because you were there. You heard things no one else did. You know the codes, the names, the network. You're the only one who can help me expose him. I'm not your spy." He leaned forward slightly, his voice low. "You were a translator for the UN's Intelligence Liaison Office, weren't you? You weren't just translating, you were decrypting messages, passing classified intel. Those files are sealed, asterisk." "I have access," he said simply. Her eyes narrowed. "You hacked the UN." He shrugged lightly. "My opens doors, Ms. Rahim. Some just happened to be digital." Despite herself, she almost smiled. "You're insane, probably." Kareem's expression softened. "But I'm right." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a file, slim, marked only with her initials. "This is your file, Samantha. The real one. The one the world never saw. The night of the bombing, Rashid's men intercepted a diplomatic cable. The one you translated. The version you sent was correct. But the version released to the public was altered. Someone used your credentials to cover their tracks. That's why they blamed you." Her breath caught. She took the file hesitantly, flipping through the pages. Her photo, classified transcripts, reports stamped confidential. Eyes only, she read the altered cable. The signature that wasn't hers but looked identical. A perfect forgery. Kareem watched her reaction quietly. "They erased you, Samantha. But I can bring you back." She looked up slowly. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I can't do it alone," he said simply. "And because I think you deserve to know the truth." Samantha's mind spun. She had spent 2 years hiding, running, surviving off false names and forged IDs. She had dreamed of vindication, of proof, but it had always been a fantasy. Until now, she closed the file and met his gaze. "And what do you expect in return?" Corinne's lips curved faintly. "Your cooperation." "In what?" He hesitated, studying her as if measuring her limits. "Rashid is attending a charity gala tomorrow night at my hotel. I'm hosting. I need someone who can get close to him without raising suspicion. Someone fluent in Arabic, French, English, someone he won't remember until it's too late." "You won't need to infiltrate a gala. I want you to retrieve something," he corrected. "A briefcase. Locked, gold hardware. Inside are documents proving Rashid's ties to an organization called Sandstorm." Her heart thudded at the name. Sandstorm, the codename from the embassy cables. "That's not just an organization," she murmured. "It's a shadow network, arms, politics, money laundering. If you're right, that means that the world's about to get very messy." Corinne finished for her. Samantha sat back, silent for a long moment. Every instinct screamed this was dangerous, suicidal, even. But deep inside, something else stirred. Purpose. "You're asking me to risk my life," she said quietly. Corinne's eyes didn't waver. "No, I'm asking you to reclaim it." They met again that evening in his penthouse overlooking the East River. The air smelled of leather and cedar wood, the kind of understated luxury that came from old money and colder ambition. Samantha entered cautiously, her eyes sweeping the space. Marble floors, sleek glass. Panoramic view. Corinne stood near the window, phone in hand, giving instructions in rapid Arabic. His tone was clipped, commanding, a man used to control. When he ended the call, he turned toward her, his expression unreadable. "Your apartment was searched this afternoon," he said. "The police have a warrant out for you. Connection to Victor Caldwell's murder." Samantha froze. "Caldwell? Rashid's American contact," Corinne said grimly. "He was found dead this morning, staged to look like suicide." Her pulse quickened. "That means they're tying up loose ends," he said. "You're next." Samantha's breath caught. The room seemed to tilt. 2 years of running, and now the walls were closing in again. "I need to leave the country," she said quickly. Corinne shook his head. "That's exactly what they want. The moment you cross a border, you disappear for good, and not by choice. Then what? You stay here," he said firmly. "This penthouse is under private security. You're safe for now. We'll move tomorrow night." She frowned. "You're asking me to trust you." "I'm offering you a choice," Corinne said softly. "Run again, or fight back." Night fell. The city outside glittered like shattered glass. Samantha stood by the window, staring at the skyline. Her reflection stared back, tired eyes, guarded heart. A woman who had lost everything and still refused to break. Behind her, Corinne poured 2 glasses of scotch. 2 second chances, he said. Holding one out, she hesitated, then accepted it. To dangerous alliances, she countered. He chuckled. Fair enough. They drank in silence, the air between them heavy with unspoken tension. "Why do I feel like you're not telling me everything?" she asked quietly. Corinne's gaze lingered on her, unreadable. "Because if I did, you'd never agree to help." Her heart skipped. "What are you not telling me?" "That Rashid isn't the only one we're hunting," he said finally. "There's someone else, someone inside our own government. The codename in the files is American Eagle. I think he's the one who framed you." Samantha set her glass down slowly. "Then tomorrow night we find him too." Kareem nodded once. "Tomorrow night changes everything." Outside, thunder rolled over Manhattan. Distant but growing closer, the kind of storm that didn't ask for permission before breaking. Inside, two broken lives had just made a pact that would set fire to everything they thought they knew. And somewhere in the dark, the man called Rashid smiled as his phone buzzed with an encrypted message. "Target confirmed. She's alive." The Falcon Grand Hotel glittered like a jewel in the heart of Manhattan that night. Every crystal chandelier, every polished marble surface reflected the glow of power, money, and influence gathered under one roof. Outside, luxury cars lined the street, flashes from cameras lighting up the red carpet as the city's elite arrived in their finest attire. Inside, Samantha stood before a mirror in Kareem's private suite, barely recognizing the reflection staring back at her. The woman in the glass wasn't the exhausted waitress from Lumiere. She was elegance incarnate. Her black evening gown shimmered with subtle sequins that caught the light whenever she moved, and a delicate mask framed her eyes in gold filigree. "Perfect," Kareem said from behind her, adjusting the cufflinks on his tuxedo. His voice was calm, but his eyes held the storm of 1,000 unspoken calculations. "I still can't believe I agreed to this," Samantha muttered, turning slightly to meet his gaze in the mirror. "You wanted proof," he said simply, "and tonight we'll get it." He handed her a small earpiece. "Stay in communication. Ahmad and I will monitor the cameras from the security room. Your job is simple. Get the drive from Bin Rashid's suite while he's downstairs giving his speech." "Simple?" she repeated with a sardonic laugh. "You make it sound like ordering dessert." Kareem smiled faintly. "You handled me at a restaurant full of billionaires. This should be easier." "Easier?" She shot him a look. "One mistake, and I'll end up on every international watch list." "Then don't make a mistake," he said, his tone soft but edged with steel dots. Samantha rolled her eyes and turned away, slipping the comm device behind her ear. But beneath her composure, her heart raced. Not out of fear, not entirely, but something else. Something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Downstairs, the grand ballroom was alive with music and chatter. A string quartet played in one corner, while waiters in crisp uniforms circulated with champagne flutes and canapes. Samantha descended the sweeping staircase with poise that turned heads. Kareem was already on the main floor, greeting guests, CEOs, politicians, foreign dignitaries, each handshake calculated, every smile a mask. When his eyes found hers across the room, for a fleeting moment, the Fawade cracked. She looked breathtaking, and for a heartbeat, the mission faded from his mind. "Focus." Ahmad's voice buzzed in his earpiece. Bin Rashid just arrived. Kareem straightened, his expression hardening once more. The Saudi dignitary entered surrounded by security, tall, with sharp features and eyes that saw too much. Mohammed bin Rashid moved like a man accustomed to being obeyed. His entourage included two men Kareem recognized, both with ties to the old coup network. Target in position, Ahmad reported, Samantha. Meanwhile, mingled effortlessly with the crowd. Every movement rehearsed to perfection. When she passed bin Rashid's group, her mask hid her sharp, assessing gaze. "I've got a visual," she whispered softly, touching her bracelet, a disguised Mick. "He's wearing a gold pin, right sleeve, matching the one in the photograph." "Confirmed," Kareem replied. "His security detail will stay with him for at least 20 minutes. That's your window. Copy that," she murmured, disappearing toward the elevators. The 52nd floor was silent, the opulence almost suffocating. Samantha moved quickly, scanning for cameras, counting steps as Kareem guided her remotely. "Left at the end of the hall," he instructed. "Second door. That's his suite." She pulled a small device from her clutch, a lock bypass tool. The light blinked green. The door clicked open. "Room secure," she whispered, slipping inside. The suite was vast, larger than most apartments, but meticulously arranged. Every surface gleamed, every object in place. Samantha headed straight to the desk, searching drawers, tapping beneath the edges for hidden compartments. Anything. Kareem's voice came through softly. "Not yet," she breathed. "Wait, there's a safe behind the painting." She pulled a small laser tool from her clutch. One of Kareem's "don't ask how I got it" gadgets. The safe clicked open after 90 seconds. Inside, documents, a passport, a small encrypted drive. "I have it," she said, heart pounding. "Get out, now," Kareem ordered. But before she could move, a soft chime echoed the door. Samantha froze. Someone was coming in. "Kareem," she hissed. "He's back early." "Stay calm," he said quickly. "Use the balcony. Go." She darted across the room, slipping through the glass doors just as bin Rashid entered. Still on a phone call, his voice sharp and irritated. Samantha pressed against the wall outside, breath shallow. The night air was cold against her skin. From her earpiece, she heard Kareem's tense whisper, "Samantha, whatever you do, don't look down." She risked a glance. 52 floors below, New York glittered like a galaxy. Her pulse thundered. Then, the sound of footsteps inside. Bin Rashid was pacing closer to the balcony. Samantha looked up, a maintenance ladder on the next ledge. It was her only chance. She took a deep breath. Then she jumped. Her fingers caught the rung just in time. Metal bit into her skin, but she didn't let go. Inch by inch, she pulled herself up until she could crawl onto the upper balcony, gasping. "Samantha." "Report," Kareem's voice demanded. "I'm fine," she panted. "Mostly, get to the stairwell. We'll extract from the service exit. On it." 10 minutes later, Samantha slipped into the hotel's back corridor, clutching the drive hidden in her purse. Kareem met her near the service elevator, worry flickering across his face when he saw her disheveled state. "You're late," he said, but his voice softened. "You try parkouring across your hotel sometime," she shot back, brushing dust from her gown. He allowed himself a small smile. "You got it." She handed him the drive. "Now tell me it was worth almost dying for." Kareem took it carefully, sliding it into his jacket pocket. "If what's on this drive is what I think it is, Samantha, Then tonight, we just changed everything. But before either of them could speak again, Ahmad's urgent voice came through the comm. Kareem, you need to move. Now. Security breach in the ballroom. They know she's here. The world seemed to tilt again. Kareem's expression hardened. Time's up. Let's go. They bolted toward the emergency stairs as alarms began to sound, and downstairs, amid the glittering guests, the mask of wealth and civility began to crumble. The shrill blare of the hotel's security alarm sliced through the music like a blade. Guests in glittering gowns and tailored suits froze mid-laugh as red lights flickered across the ballroom walls. Then came the murmur, first confusion, then panic. Fire alarm? Someone muttered, security breach. Whispered another, clutching her diamond necklace as if it might offer protection. But Kareem Al-Fahad knew better. This wasn't a false alarm. This was a warning. Someone inside his own event had just triggered the silent failsafe bin Rashid's men knew. He grabbed Samantha's wrist, pulling her into the staff corridor. Service stairs, now. She didn't argue. The stilettos that had carried her elegantly across marble moments ago now hammered against concrete steps. Alarms echoed down the stairwell, mingling with the distant thud of boot security. Or worse, Ahmad. Talk to me, Kareem said into his earpiece. I'm rerouting cameras, but they've locked down the main exits. Ahmad's voice crackled. Two black SUVs just pulled up to the rear service door, definitely not hotel security. Samantha's pulse spiked. So they were expecting me. Looks like it, Ahmad replied grimly. Kareem's jaw tightened. Then we give them the chase they came for. They burst into the sub-level hallway, dimly lit and empty except for stacks of catering crates. The smell of detergent and metal hung in the air. This way, Kareem said, leading her toward a loading dock. Wait! Samantha stopped short, pointing toward the corner where a shadow moved. A man stepped out tall, armed, and wearing an earpiece identical to Ahmad's. Not hotel security. Without hesitation, Kareem shoved Samantha behind a stack of crates as the first bullet cracked past them, splintering wood. Down, he barked, drawing a compact pistol from beneath his jacket. He fired 2 shots precise, controlled. The gunman crumpled silently. Samantha stared, eyes wide. You're not just a businessman, are you? Kareem reloaded, his voice cold. I stopped being that a long time ago. They made it to the loading dock, where Ahmad was waiting beside a black SUV with the engine running. Move, he shouted. Samantha dove into the back seat as Kareem slid in beside her. The car peeled away, tires screeching on wet pavement. In the rearview mirror, 2 SUVs gave chase. Get us out of sight, Kareem ordered. Ahmad grinned tightly. Already on it, he cut sharply through a side street, weaving between delivery trucks and late-night taxis. The city lights became a blur as horns blared and pedestrians scattered in the back seat. Samantha tried to steady her breathing. They'll track the license plates. You can't just outrun them. We're not outrunning them, Kareem said. We're disappearing. Ahmad pressed a sequence on the console, and the car's dashboard lights shifted to a dim red glow. The license plate flipped, numbers changing automatically. Kareem glanced at Samantha. "Welcome to Plan C. What was Plan B?" she asked, gripping the seat. "Don't get caught." They merged into the midnight traffic near the East River, blending with the stream of cars heading toward Brooklyn. The pursuing SUV slowed, uncertain, then turned in the wrong direction, lost them. Ahmad confirmed. Samantha sagged against the seat, exhaustion finally catching up. Her hands trembled, the adrenaline beginning to ebb. "You handled yourself well," Kareem said quietly. She gave a dry laugh. "I almost fell 50 stories and got shot at in a ball gown. That's not exactly my resume." His lips curved faintly. "You survived. That's enough." She turned to face him. "You've done this before, haven't you? Missions, guns, hiding evidence." Kareem's eyes darkened. "Let's just say I've had practice finding the truth in dangerous places." "And the drive?" she asked. "Tell me it wasn't for nothing." He reached into his jacket, pulling out the small silver drive. It looked harmless, ordinary, but both of them knew it was anything but. "This," Kareem said, holding it up between them, "is the key to Operation Sandstorm. Bank records, transaction chains, names. Enough to bring down 6 governments if it gets out. And if it doesn't," she pressed, "then we're dead." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the hum of the tires against wet asphalt. Ahmad took the next turn sharply, guiding them into a narrow alley behind an abandoned warehouse. "Safe house?" Samantha asked. "For now," Kareem said. "It's one of mine. Off the books." Inside, the building was dark and cold, but securely enforced doors. Blackout windows, surveillance feeds. Kareem flicked on a small desk lamp, the light casting long shadows across the concrete walls. "Sit," he told Samantha gently. "You need rest." She hesitated. "I'm not sure I can sleep knowing those men are still out there." "You won't have to," he said. "They'll regroup. It'll take them hours to trace where we went." He connected the drive to a laptop. Lines of encrypted code filled the screen. Samantha leaned forward. "Can you decrypt it?" "I can try." Kareem typed quickly, bypassing the initial firewall. Then click. A folder opened, displaying rows of files labeled with dates, project codes, and initials. Her eyes widened. "This is it." But before she could say another word, the monitor flickered and a warning flashed across the screen. "Remote access detected." Kareem's head snapped up. "They're trying to erase it." Samantha lunged forward. "Can you stop them?" "I can slow them down." He began typing furiously. "Whoever's behind this has military-grade encryption." The progress bar crept toward completion. 60%, 70%. Then, just as it hit 90%, the connection cut. Half the files vanished. "Damn it." Kareem slammed his fist on the desk. "What did we lose?" she asked. Names, he said grimly. "The people behind the operation. But we still have transaction records and one uncorrupted video file." Samantha's gaze sharpened. "Play it." He clicked it open. The grainy footage showed a conference room. 4 men sat around a table. One of them was unmistakably Victor Caldwell, another bin Rashid. But the man speaking was someone neither of them expected. Samantha's blood went cold. "That's Director Evans," CIA. Kareem's expression hardened. So it's true. The corruption isn't just in Saudi intelligence, it reaches into the agency itself. Samantha leaned closer. We need to release this. He shook his head. Not yet. If we go public now, we'll be dead before morning. Then what do we do? Kareem looked out the narrow window. The city lights reflected in his eyes like distant fire. We gather the rest of the proof, he said quietly. And then, Samantha, we burn their empire to the ground. They were ghosts again. By dawn the city had changed its clothes. The night's glitter replaced by office lights and commuters. Kareem drove with the practiced calm of a man who had spent his life navigating stormy seas. The avenue windows blurred past while Samantha thumbed the bandage at her wrist, her skin still prickling from the bullet-splintered crate in the hotel basement. Ahmad rode shotgun, eyes scanning traffic, jaw clenched. Who's Cole? Samantha asked quietly, breaking the taut silence. Kareem's jaw tightened. FBI liaison, Ahmad supplied before Kareem could answer. Not the man I'd want in my crosshairs. He's been quiet for a long time, then suddenly active. He's the kind of agent who believes institutions are always right. He glanced at Samantha. Which is bad for us, because your case looks like an attack on those institutions. Samantha swallowed. The grainy footage the men around the table had shown more than complicity. It had shown friends trading favors like currencies. Director Evans' face hovered in her mind, quiet and unflinching. That image had been meant to be secret. Now it might be the most dangerous thing either of them had ever carried. We need a safe, trusted place to sort what we have, Kareem said. Not a server, not a hotel penthouse. Somewhere low profile, low risk. Like where? Samantha asked. Kareem's mouth curved once, small and private. My mother's old workshop in Brooklyn. Nobody looks for a billionaire in a dusty ceramics studio. The studio smelled faintly of clay and turpentine when they arrived. Small, narrow, shelves of bisque and drying pots. It had once been a place of ordinary creation. Kareem had turned it into a discreet nerve center, a battered router, a bank of encrypted hard drives, and an old-fashioned radio that Ahmad kept tuned for chatter. Ahmad pushed a phone-wrapped box towards Samantha. Basic triage. We'll separate what's salvageable from what they could have already corrupted. Samantha unwrapped a drive and a stack of printed transaction logs Kareem had managed to preserve. She spread them across the workbench, fingers skimming over names and shell companies until the paper blurred. The financial trails were messy, global web of small transfers that, when stitched together, spelled theft on a sovereign level. But the names were the puzzle's center. We lost people, she said finally, voice small. We lost evidence, but we still have direction, the transfers, the dates. We can trace the endpoints. Kareem nodded. Swiss accounts, a private bank in Geneva, and an art broker in Dubai. They move money like smoke. We need someone who reads smoke and finds the source. Marcus, Samantha said. Kareem's eyebrows rose. Marcus, the man I told you about, the one from my UN days. He's off-grid mostly, consults for non-profits and museums. Brilliant with paper trails. Her voice hardened. If anyone has a copy stashed where no one would expect, It's him. Ahmad tapped his lips. Is Marcus still safe to contact? You disappeared for a reason. Samantha's face closed. He owed my father a favor. He's the kind of man who honors favors even when the world forgets them. Kareem did not argue. The studio hummed as the radio picked up a distant voice. Police chatter. The line between safety and exposure thinned every minute. Kareem keyed a burner number into a small, battered phone. Marcus, Samantha said in a low voice. Please. There was a pause on the other end, a long, taut line of breath then. In a voice that had a softness like worn leather. Sammy, if you're the Samantha I used to know, don't call me here. Tell me one thing. Are you alive? I'm alive, she answered, and I need help. He gave a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Meet me at the old library on Lexington in 1 hour. Bring nothing we can track. They moved in the quiet way of people who had rehearsed disappearance 1,000 times. Crane drove. Ahmad watched rearview mirrors. Samantha packed only what she must. The backup drive Kareem had saved, her old translator's notebook, and a scarred photograph of her father that she had kept folded like contraband in the wallet. At the library, Marcus looked older, hair shot with silver, hands ink-stained from days of archiving. He hugged Samantha like he had never forgiven her for vanishing. You vanished in a good story, he muttered. But now you drag me into the sequel? You've always liked sequels, she said. They moved to a dim reading room where Marcus produced a battered satchel and began work. He had the patience of monastic archivists, slow, certain catching threads others missed. His laptop hummed as he cross-referenced bank numbers, shell corporations, and flight logs. It was like watching a locksmith coax a complex lock to life. Bin Rashid funnels through a hedge in Dubai, Marcus murmured. From there to an art trust. The trust purchases a painting small. Unremarkable land uses the appraisal to legitimize transfers. From the trust, micropayments go to shell accounts across Europe, which fold into a larger account masked as charity. Samantha's breath hitched. Which charity? Marcus hesitated. The Adams Foundation. Silence swallowed the room. The Adams Foundation. Kareem whispered. His voice cut like a stone. My family's name. Samantha's fingers went cold. The Foundation's name in Marcus's database poked at an old bruise, an institution of goodwill that had become a conduit for theft. The photo in her wallet seemed to weigh heavier. This isn't just financial embezzlement, Marcus said finally. They've built an infrastructure, charities, hotels, and diplomatic channels that masks both money and movement. A scraping sound at the door made them freeze. Marcus's eyes narrowed. We're not alone. Outside the library, footsteps echoed the wrong rhythm. Someone had read too many novels about safe houses and safe meetings. It wasn't that their enemies were clever, just that they were relentless and had resources. Someone had put a quiet camera on Marcus's office 2 nights ago. Someone was combing the cities for thread-ins. We need extraction, Ahmad said. Kareem reached for the satchel, tucking drives into a layered pouch beneath his coat. We split up. Marcus will come with us, Maria, he added to Samantha, naming a safe route through an old Eli's apartment in Queens. It's less likely they'll look there, Samantha protested. I can go alone. No. Kareem cut her off. not unkindly. You've seen what following alone costs. We move as a unit. They left the library the way shadows leave a stage together. The city felt like a place in which every face could be a ledger. They moved fast, a subway ride jammed with commuters, a cab through neighborhoods that smelled like frying bread and laundry soap, a walk through alleys where the familiarity of damp brick was a small reassurance. At Maria's apartment, Marcus collapsed into a sagging couch and let silence do the mending. He shuffled papers, moved files into a locked drawer, and finally, with a tired grin, said, "Sammy, you always bring the fireworks." Samantha laughed short, brittle. "I don't bring fireworks. I bring alarms." Outside, a sedan idled at the curb, and two men in pressed coats scanned the street. They had not yet looked up to the apartment window. The world below went on. But then, like a curtain twitching, the rear door of the sedan opened and a woman stepped out tall, precise, the face of someone who had learned that kindness was a liability. She carried herself with an ease that disguised danger. "She's early," Corinne murmured. "Who's she?" Marcus asked. "Cole's mole," Ahmad said. The woman's eyes skimmed the building number and paused, noting the light in Maria's window. She pulled a small device from her pocket and tapped it. The sedan's engine hummed like a sleeping animal. She walked across the sidewalk with measured steps. "This can't be good," Marcus whispered. Samantha felt the old, cold instinct. Leave now. But leaving would mean splitting Marcus from the only safety he'd accepted, the apartment. The carved code of an old friend. And Marcus was the one holding maps to the money trail. Corinne made the decision with the graceless speed of men who had no time to be polite. "We move now. Marcus, you go with Ahmad, Samantha, and I." He paused, searching her face. "We'll take the back exit." They split like a river splitting around an island. Ahmad and Marcus ducked into the stairwell. Corinne and Samantha slipped down a shadowed service corridor. Through a narrow lattice window, Corinne watched as the woman approached Maria's door and raised her hand to knock. The knock sounded like a metronome. The apartment's lock clicked. Maria opened, surprised, then smiled. Then her smile froze and she stepped back as the woman produced credentials. That read like a sentence. "Samantha?" The woman said the name flatly, as if tasting it. It was the first time Samantha heard her own name said in such a way since she had lost it. "Samantha," the woman repeated. "You're a hard woman to find." Corinne and Samantha were already moving careful, quiet, closing in on a side fire escape when suddenly Maria's shout split the air. A pack of men flowed into view from the street, converging like vultures. Samantha felt the cold iron of a thought. They had been flanked. Someone had known their route. Corinne's hand found hers, palm warm and steady. "Move," he breathed. They took the fire escape down to flights, and then 3. Their steps timed and breathless. The men below shouted, then split into directions, one group going to the front, the other cutting around the block to intercept. Ahmad's voice came through in shards. "We're pinned at the alley. Marcus's hit, get him out." Samantha's chest tightened. Marcus had been the one to help her disappear. He had earned his measure of safety and forgiveness. She could not let him pay the price. Kareem made a choice that left no room for negotiation. He sprinted across the street, with Samantha on his heels, and charged toward the confrontation. Men turned, startled, then raised weapons. Kareem's hand flashed, and the world shuddered with the close thunder of a scuffle grunts, a broken sign, a scattering of papers like dead leaves. They got Marcus to Ahmad and pulled him into the back of a delivery van that Kareem had flagged down moments before. A driver, convinced to help by Kareem's blunt payment and sterner gaze, peeled away. In the van's dim light, Marcus lay half-conscious, sweat beading at his temple. "You okay?" Samantha demanded, voice sharp. Marcus managed a ragged breath and smiled, ridiculous and stubborn. "For now. You owe me coffee, lots of it after this." They drove, and the city closed around them like a mouth. The chase had widened. Fingerprints were being pressed into databases. The woman Cole's mole was already in a room, sending coordinates back to someone with the patience to wait. In the van, Kareem reached into a side pocket and revealed, carefully wrapped, a small leather-bound ledger he'd filched from Maria's desk during the scramble. Its pages crackled like dry leaves. He handed it to Samantha. "Find anything?" she asked. Kareem nodded. "More trail markers. A list of shell pays. A name you'll want to remember." He tapped a line with his finger. "Alvarez Trust, Geneva branch." Samantha's mind snapped. "That's where the files are, or one of them." Kareem's mouth tightened. "Then we go to Geneva." Her laugh was a single bark. "You said no borders." He looked at her, the city reflecting in his eyes like a promise and a threat. "I didn't say never. I said not yet." They rode through daylight until the van dropped them at a quiet dock where a friend of Kareem's owned a barge, low profile, unremarkable. The van folded back into the city, swallowed like a secret. For the moment, they had a few breaths. Samantha pressed her forehead to the cool wooden wall of the barge and thought of the footage, of Director Evans' small, careful mouth. She thought of her father's photograph nestling against the drive she had helped steal. She thought of Kareem and the way he had reached for her hand when the fire was closest. Outside, the city moved on, unaware that a war of paper and loyalty had been waged in its seams. Inside, they were tired, wounded, and still moving, hungry not just for truth, but for the small, human thing that had pushed them into danger in the first place. The hope that the dead could be named, and the living could be made to answer. Kareem finally unpacked the drive and connected it to an offline reader. The screen hummed as files loaded slowly, fragments now, but enough to pull at the edges of a larger map. On the last file, a single name blinked into being. American Eagle Evans. And somewhere, a line was closing. The rain hadn't stopped since dawn. From the floor to ceiling windows of Kareem Al-Fahad's penthouse, Manhattan looked like 1,000 blurred lights behind a curtain of water. The city never slept, but tonight it felt as though it was holding its breath. Samantha stood at the window, arms folded, still wearing the borrowed shirt that hung a little too loosely on her frame. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, Victor Caldwell's face appeared, the shock of his death, the accusation that had followed, and Ahmad's warning that she was next. Behind her, Kareem was on the phone again, voice low, switching effortlessly between Arabic, English, and French. His words were clipped, decisive orders when he finally ended the call. The silence that followed seemed to hum. "They're moving faster than expected," he said quietly. Samantha didn't turn. "How fast?" "Too fast. Caldwell's death has spooked them. They've rerouted funds through 3 new shell corporations in Dubai and Geneva. The trail's almost gone cold." "Almost," she repeated, a spark of challenge in her voice. Kareem walked closer, his reflection joining hers in the window. "You think you can trace it? I can read dialects your analysts can't even identify. Give me access to your encrypted files and 10 hours." He studied her for a long moment. "You trust me that much?" She finally faced him. "No, but I trust data." A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Fair enough." He moved toward his private office. The walls there were lined with monitors showing surveillance feeds. From his hotels across the globe, Paris, Dubai, Singapore, and Riyadh. The empire he had built as bait for the men who had killed his parents. Samantha sat beside him at the long glass table as he slid a tablet toward her. "Everything we've collected so far. You'll need these codes to decrypt the internal communications." For hours they worked in silence. The only sounds the soft tapping of keys and the distant thunder outside. At one point she caught him watching her instead of the screens. "What?" she asked without looking up. "Your focus," he said. "It's disciplined, like someone who used to take orders." "I did," she replied, tone flat, "until the people giving them started killing their own." He nodded once, as if understanding something unspoken. Near dawn, she found it a series of transfers marked with the same internal notation, S Storm PH2. Her pulse quickened. "There, Operation Sandstorm. Phase 2. Kareem leaned over her shoulder, eyes narrowing as he scanned the data. "They used my own foundation accounts to launder the money. They're getting bold. They're getting desperate." He corrected. Asterisk the file listed a date October 19th and a location. Falcon Grand Hotel, Riyadh. "That's 3 days from now," Samantha whispered. "That's when they'll complete the transfer," Kareem said. "And when we end this." She looked up at him. "You mean go there?" "I have to. It's my property, my board, my responsibility. And me? I could use someone who speaks their language." A beat of silence. Then she exhaled slowly. "Then we do it together." By the time the storm broke, the plan was already taking shape. Ahmad coordinated logistics, while Samantha worked through coded messages between offshore accounts. Each new piece of data brought the conspiracy into sharper focus. Names of ministers, businessmen, even an American senator. That night, as she packed a small case, Kareem appeared at her door. "Private jet leaves in 2 hours," he said. "You should try to rest." "I'll sleep on the plane." He hesitated, then added quietly, "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." She met his gaze steadily. "I've been running for 2 years. Time to stop." For the first time, he smiled, not the calculated charm of a billionaire, but something almost human. "Then welcome to the war, Ms. Adams." The Falcon Grand Hotel in Riyadh wasn't just luxury. It was legend. a gleaming tower of glass and gold rising above the desert skyline. It symbolized everything Kareem Al-Fahad had built: power, wealth, and control. But tonight, beneath its polished marble and chandeliered halls, it would become the stage for something far more dangerous. Samantha stepped off the private jet into the dry, soggy night. The heat was thick, heavy, almost suffocating after New York's rain. Kareem walked beside her, expression unreadable behind dark glasses. Ahmad a silent shadow a few steps behind. "Everything's in motion," Ahmad murmured, handing Kareem a secure phone. "Your guests have begun arriving." Bin Rashid checked in an hour ago, suite 4901, just as expected. "And his entourage?" Kareem asked. "For men, former military." Discreet but armed, Samantha glanced at Kareem. "So, we're breaking into the most heavily guarded suite in the building during your own charity gala." He smirked faintly. "Timing is everything." By evening, the Falcon Grand glittered with power. Diplomats, CEOs, and foreign ministers mingled beneath a canopy of crystal light. Cameras flashed as reporters documented every smile, every handshake. Kareem played his part flawlessly, the charming host, the visionary entrepreneur. Only Samantha, standing at his side in an elegant black gown, knew the truth behind his measured calm. "You look like you've done this before," she murmured as he greeted another prince. "I grew up at these events," he replied under his breath. "Now I use them." In a corner of the ballroom, Ahmad kept watch, his earpiece connected to the security feed. Bin Rashid just left his suite. "Headed your way." Kareem's expression didn't flicker. "Showtime." Moments later, the man himself appeared, tall, commanding, silver streaks in his beard. His smile was all diplomacy, his eyes pure calculation. He clasped Kareem's hand tightly. "Kareem, it's been too long. Your father would be proud." Kareem's own smile was razor-thin. He'd be pleased the partnership continues. Samantha felt every muscle in her body tense. She'd seen that face before, years ago, in photos from her father's files. Mohammed bin Rashid, financier, former intelligence asset, and one of the architects of the failed coup. The man responsible for the deaths of 2 families. "Excuse me," she murmured, slipping away. Her signal came through her earpiece. Now, 10 floors above the gala. The elevator doors slid open silently. Samantha stepped out, replacing heels with soft-soled flats she'd hidden in her clutch. The hallway was empty. Ahmad's voice guided her. Security cameras looped for 6 minutes. "You're clear." She moved quickly, picking the electronic lock with practiced precision. The door clicked open. Inside, Bin Rashid's suite was vast, a private palace of gold and velvet. She went straight to the study, pulling a small flash drive from her bracelet. "Server access point is behind the bar," Ahmad said. She crouched, connecting the drive. Lines of code began to flicker across the screen of her hidden wrist display. File after file decrypted, flight records, offshore accounts. Encrypted communications labeled S-Storm-PH3. Her breath caught. "Faze Ahmad, I have something," she whispered. "This isn't just money. It's logistics, weapons shipments, encrypted orders. They're planning synchronized attacks in 6 countries, Download everything, Ahmad replied. But before she could finish, a faint click echoed from behind her, the unmistakable sound of a gun being cocked. Step away from the console, a cold voice ordered. Samantha froze. Slowly, she raised her hands. In the reflection of the mirror, she saw one of bin Rashid's guards, tall, heavily built. Weapon aimed at her back. Who sent you? He demanded. Her mind raced. Housekeeping, she said lightly. He didn't smile. Turn around. Just as she did, the man's radio crackled. Unit 4, report. Then a sharp thud. The guard dropped soundlessly. Karine stood in the doorway, silenced pistol still raised. Eyes blazing. You're late, Samantha whispered. I prefer dramatic timing, he replied. She slipped the flash drive from the console and pocketed it. We have what we need. Let's go. But before they could reach the door, the hotel's alarm system roared to life, a deafening siren echoing through the halls. Ahmad's voice crackled in their earpieces. They know. Security en route. You've got 90 seconds before lockdown. Samantha's pulse spiked. We'll never make the elevators. Karine's eyes darted to the window. Then we don't. She followed his gaze, 49 floors above the ground. You're insane. He grinned. I built this hotel. Remember, there's a maintenance platform 2 floors down. Without hesitation, he kicked open the window, wind howling through the room. Samantha hesitated only a second before he grabbed her hand. Trust me, he said. I hate when you say that, she muttered, and jumped. The city lights spun below them as they hit the platform hard. Karine pulled her up just as spotlights cut across the facade. Shouts echoed above. They were already being hunted. The sirens from the Falcon Grand cut through the night like a blade. Red lights flashed across the glass towers of Riyadh, casting long shadows over the streets below. On the maintenance platform, Samantha pressed herself against the cold metal, heart hammering as searchlights swept overhead. Karim, they've sealed the lower floors. Ahmad's voice crackled in her ear. Security is rerouting to the service exits. You've got maybe 3 minutes before the entire building goes into lockdown. Karine exhaled sharply, scanning the steel framework below. We'll take the west scaffolding. There's a maintenance lift that leads to the underground parking. Samantha followed his gaze. That's for stories of open air. He smirked faintly. You jumped once already. She glared at him. That was before I realized your idea of a plan involves defying gravity. But she didn't argue. Together, they climbed down the scaffolding, the sound of distant shouting growing louder above. The desert wind whipped through her hair, carrying the scent of sand and ozone. Karine moved with fluid precision, every motion practiced, efficient. It wasn't the grace of a businessman, but of a man who'd lived through more battles than he admitted. Halfway down, a gunshot cracked. A bullet pinged off the metal bar inches from Samantha's hand. They've got visual. Ahmad shouted. Move, now. Samantha dropped to the next level, grabbing the railing to steady herself. Karine followed, shielding her with his body as another shot rang out. Below, the faint hum of the maintenance lift was their only salvation. To more levels, Karine said. We make it there, we disappear. She forced herself to breathe, to focus. She'd faced worse, interrogation rooms, manhunts, assassins. But something about this moment felt different. Not fear, not adrenaline. It was trust, in a man she barely knew yet somehow already understood. Finally, they reached the platform. Corinne smashed the emergency panel, and the lift jerked to life, descending into the dimly lit parking bay below. As soon as the doors opened, Ahmad's SUV screeched into view. He leaned out the window. "Get in!" They jumped inside just as security vehicles burst through the ramp behind them. Corinne grabbed the wheel. "Hold on!" The SUV shot forward, tires screeching. Samantha glanced back to see armed guards pouring into the garage. One of them raised a rifle. The windshield spiderwebbed with cracks as bullets slammed into it. "Drive faster," she shouted. "I'm trying." Corinne growled, swerving through the underground maze. "Ahead," Ahmad pointed. "There, service tunnel." They plunged into the narrow passageway, lights flickering as the sound of pursuit faded. After what felt like forever, they emerged into the cool open air beyond the city limits. Corinne slowed only when the skyline had vanished behind them. For several long moments, no one spoke. The only sound was their ragged breathing and the steady hum of the engine. Samantha finally broke the silence. "You shot a man in your own hotel. He would have killed you," Corinne said simply. "That's not the point." He glanced at her, voice quieter now. "Then what is?" "That you didn't even hesitate." Their eyes met, an unspoken truth hanging between them. Neither was innocent. Both had blood on their hands, scars that no amount of justice could erase. Ahmad interrupted softly. "We should keep moving. If Bin Rashid knows what was taken, he'll mobilize everything he has." Samantha reached into her clutch and pulled out the small flash drive, holding it up. "This is enough to expose half of Operation Sandstorm's network. But we need a secure line to get it out." "I know someone," Corinne said. "But it's not safe to contact him yet. We'll go to Dubai first, regroup, assess, then act." She leaned back against the seat, exhaustion washing over her. "You think Bin Rashid will just let this go?" "No," Corinne said quietly. "He'll come after us. But this time, he's not the only one who can hunt." The desert highway stretched endlessly ahead, the horizon painted in pale gold. Behind them, Riyadh's lights flickered, a reminder of everything they'd risked, and everything they'd yet to lose. As the SUV sped into the darkness, Samantha turned to look at Karim. He was watching the road, jaw tight, eyes distant. But beneath that stoic exterior, she sensed something shifting. Not just determination, but fear. Not for himself, for her. The Burj Al Noor shimmered like a mirage above the Persian Gulf, a towering monument of glass and light that defied the desert horizon. To the world, it was another jewel in Karim Al-Fahad's empire. To Samantha, it was a temporary refuge built on the edge of danger. They arrived just before dawn, slipping through the hotel's private entrance reserved for VIPs. The lobby was silent, save for the soft hum of distant air conditioning and the rhythmic echo of their footsteps. On polished marble, "Security cleared?" Karim asked. "Completely," Ahmad replied. "I've triple scrubbed all surveillance. We're ghosts here, for now." Samantha followed them into the penthouse suite. From its panoramic windows, the city stretched below, gold, blue, and endless. The first light of sunrise painted everything in a glow that made the world seem momentarily peaceful. But peace was an illusion, and they all knew it. Kareem poured a glass of water and handed it to her. "Drink. You haven't slept in 30 hours. She accepted it, fingers brushing his. "Neither have you." He gave a faint smile. "I've learned to live on adrenaline." As Ahmad set up a laptop and secure transmitter on the dining table, Samantha watched Kareem's reflection in the window. The composed billionaire for Wade slowly fading into the weary man beneath. "Ahmad," she asked softly, "can we trust Director Harlow?" Ahmad didn't look up. He's one of the few left who hasn't sold his soul. But even he has limits. Kareem nodded. "We sent in part of the data, enough to prove our case. The rest stays with us until we know who's clean." He turned to Samantha. "You decrypted half of the files. What exactly did you see?" She hesitated, the weight of what she'd uncovered still pressing on her. It wasn't just funding or weapons. There were communications from inside the UN, encrypted under diplomatic protocols. Someone high up was feeding them intelligence. Kareem's jaw tightened. "An inside mole, not just one," she said quietly. "3. One of them used the codename Falcon Shadow." The irony wasn't lost on either of them. By afternoon, the suite had become a war room. Maps, laptops, and encrypted drives covered every surface. Ahmad handled communications. Kareem coordinated resources through untraceable channels. Samantha, surrounded by stacks of translated documents, pieced together the final picture of Operation Sandstorm. It was worse than anyone had imagined. Coordinated uprisings across multiple nations. Armed shipments disguised as humanitarian aid. A shadow alliance between rogue states and corporate syndicates. All orchestrated under the guise of regional stabilization. And at the center of it all, Mohammed bin Rashid, the ghost who'd eluded justice for decades. When Samantha finally looked up, the sun had dipped low over the horizon. Kareem stood on the balcony, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and urgent. "Yes, no names, not yet. I'll handle it personally." He ended the call and exhaled deeply. "Problem?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. "That was my contact in London." Bin Rashid moved his accounts. Offshore, encrypted through 9 shell companies. But one name keeps appearing. Victor Caldwell Holdings. Samantha froze. "Caldwell?" He nodded grimly. "He's alive." The words hit her like a physical blow. "That's impossible. I saw the reports, the DNA, the investigation, all faked." Kareem interrupted. "He staged his death. He's the American eagle." Silence hung between them, heavy, suffocating. The man she'd once worked under at the UN, who'd mentored her father, who'd supposedly died of a heart attack 2 years ago, was alive and orchestrating a global conspiracy. "He played all of us," she whispered. "My father died trying to expose him, and mine died trusting him," Kareem said bitterly. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, two lives shattered by the same lie. Finally, Samantha straightened, resolve hardening. "Then we end this." Both of them. That night, they worked in silence. Kareem traced the financial networks. Samantha cracked codes buried deep in diplomatic archives. Every click of the keyboard, every decrypted file, brought them closer to the truth and to danger. Near midnight, Ahmad's voice broke the quiet. Incoming transmission, priority channel. Encrypted signature matches Director Harlow. Kareem activated the secure line. Harlow's face appeared, grainy but recognizable. "You've stirred up quite the hornet's nest," he said without preamble. "There's chatter everywhere. Caldwell's name, Bin Rashid's accounts, your movements. Whatever you uncovered, it's rattled the wrong people." Kareem leaned forward. "We have proof tying them both to Sandstorm. If we deliver it," Harlow cut him off. "You won't get the chance. Caldwell's people are already moving. 2 of my agents were ambushed this morning. You need to disappear. Both of you." Samantha frowned. "We can't just vanish. We have enough evidence to bring them down." "Evidence means nothing if you're dead," Harlow snapped. "Trust me, you're on every watch list from Dubai to DC. I'll buy you 48 hours. No more." The screen went dark. Ahmad swore under his breath. 48 hours to expose a global conspiracy. No pressure. Kareem's expression was unreadable. "Then we don't sleep." Samantha glanced at him, the exhaustion in his eyes warring with determination. She knew that look. She'd seen it in herself, in mirrors during her years in hiding. The look of someone with nothing left to lose. "Then let's finish this," she said. Outside, the desert wind howled against the glass, carrying whispers of a storm that was only just beginning. The storm over Dubai broke just before dawn. Lightning flickered across the skyline, throwing flashes of white over the glass towers and the dark waves of the Gulf. From the penthouse window, Samantha watched the rain sheet down the glass, her reflection fractured and ghost-like. Behind her, Kareem stood at the table, finalizing the last encrypted transmission. Ahmad moved silently between terminals, rerouting their signal through 6 satellite relays. The hum of electronics filled the air like a heartbeat. "This is it," Ahmad said. "Once we send the files, there's no turning back. Every agency in the world will see what we've done." Samantha nodded slowly. "Good. Let them see." Kareem turned to her, expression steady, but eyes dark with fatigue. "Bin Rashid and Caldwell won't just sit and watch this happen. They'll move fast. We'll need a way out. There's a private runway 2 kilometers from here," Ahmad replied. "1 jet, unregistered. We can be in neutral airspace within the hour." Kareem looked at Samantha. "Do you trust me to get you out of this alive?" She met his gaze without hesitation. "I didn't come this far to survive. I came to finish it." The message went out at 5:17. Encrypted data, financial trails, intercepted communications, and the entire structure of Operation Sandstorm, transmitted simultaneously to the UN Security Council, Interpol, and 3 major news networks. By the time the upload completed, it was already too late to stop. Ahmad exhaled. "It's done." Kareem said nothing, just stared at the glowing progress bar as it disappeared. Then, softly, "Now we run." He didn't have time to finish the thought. The first explosion hit the lower floors. The suite shuddered violently, glass raining from the ceiling. Sirens blared. The lights flickered and went out. Contact breach. Ahmad shouted. "They've found us." Kareem grabbed Samantha's hand. "This way." They sprinted through the smoke-filled corridor, alarms screaming all round. Security doors slammed shut one by one as they ran. Ahmad stayed behind, overriding the system long enough to hold the last door. "Go," he yelled. "Ahmad, come on. Someone's got to lock it from this side." Before Kareem could argue, Ahmad hit the final override and the door sealed. The last thing Samantha saw was his faint smile through the glass, and then he was gone, swallowed by the smoke. They burst into the emergency stairwell. The roar of the fire grew louder behind them, echoing through the concrete. Kareem's hand never left hers as they descended flight after flight. At the 20th floor, they stopped. A group of armed men was waiting below, black tactical gear glinting in the dim light. Caldwell's private operatives. End of the line, Al-Fahad. One of them shouted. Kareem scanned the room. Narrow landing, one exit. Nowhere to run. He turned to Samantha, voice low and calm. "When I move, you head left. There's a service duct behind the fire panel. You'll fit. Go." "I'm not leaving you." "You are," he said firmly. "You still have the drive. They can't get it." Before she could protest, he stepped out from cover, drawing their attention. "You're late," he called out, his tone steady, almost mocking. The men opened fire. Samantha dove for the panel, ripping it open, crawling through the narrow space as bullets ripped through the stairwell. She heard the echo of Kareem's return fire, sharp, precise, then silence. The duct led her out into the sublevel garage, the air thick with smoke and dust. She stumbled to her feet, clutching the flash drive against her chest. Outside, the rain had turned to a torrent. Sirens wailed in the distance. She pushed through the chaos, heading toward the runway Ahmad had mentioned. A black SUV screeched to a stop in front of her. The passenger window rolled down, and to her disbelief, Kareem was behind the wheel. Blood streaked across his sleeve. "But alive. Still think I'd let you finish this alone?" he said hoarsely. She climbed in, and without another word, they sped into the storm. By the time the sun rose over the Arabian Gulf, the world had changed. Every major network carried the same breaking headline: "Global Conspiracy Exposed, Bin Rashid and Caldwell under investigation." Interpol raids swept through financial districts across 5 countries. Accounts froze, warrants issued, governments fell silent. Somewhere offshore, on a private vessel heading toward open waters, Samantha stood at the railing. Kareem joined her, the wind tearing at his coat. "It's over," she said quietly. He shook his head. "Not yet. Men like Caldwell always find a way to survive. But this time, they'll do it in the shadows, where we'll be waiting." She turned to look at him, rain glinting in her hair. "And what about you?" "I'll disappear," he said. "Rebuild. Different name, different purpose. You're still running." He smiled faintly. "So are you?" She hesitated, then held out the flash drive. "The last copy. No backups. What do we do with it?" He looked at it for a long time, then tossed it into the sea for a moment. They just watched the ripples fade into the waves, silent, breathless, and free. Finally, Samantha said, when you offered me that job for $1 million, he laughed softly. I meant every word. And if I asked for it now? He met her gaze, a hint of warmth breaking through the weariness. Then I'd give it, every last cent. The sun broke through the clouds then, turning the water into molten gold. They stood together at the edge of a world reborn. Two survivors bound by truth, betrayal, and something deeper that neither dared to name. And somewhere, deep beneath the surface of the web they'd destroyed, a single encrypted message blinked to life on a dark server.